Okay, good morning, everybody. Meeting information and accommodations. Pursuant to the governor's executive orders, which waived certain Brown Act meeting requirements, including any requirements to make a physical meeting location available to the public, and most recently, March 19, 2020 executive order, which ordered all residents to stay at home. As such, the Las Virgenes-Malibu Council of Governments will provide members of the public the opportunity to view and participate in the meeting remotely using Zoom. To join Zoom, you'll have to go onto the COG's website, correct, Terry? I can't quite read it here.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, a public agenda packet is available on the COG's website, LVMCOG.org. Members of the public who wish to connect on matters before the governing board have two options. First, make comments limited to 3 minutes during the public comment period, or second, submit an email with their written comments limited to 1,000 characters to Terry, Terry, at LVMCOG.org, no later than 12 p.m. on Monday, October 19, 2020. The email address will remain open during the meeting for providing public comment during the meeting. Emails received during the meeting will be read out loud at the appropriate time during the meeting, provided they are received before the board takes action on an item, or can be read during general public comment. For any questions regarding the virtual meeting, please contact Terry, Terry, at LVMCOG.org. So I'm hereby going to commence the meeting of the Las Virgenes-Malibu Council of Governments Governing Board meeting of Tuesday, October 20th, 2020 at 8:30 a.m. Let me take a roll call. Kelly Honig.
Present.
Karen Farrar.
Here.
Stuart Siegel.
Present.
Alicia Weintraub.
Here.
Illece Buckley Weber. Here. So we have a quorum. Thank you all. Can I get a motion and a second? And please state your names when you give those to approval of the agenda.
So moved. Alicia Weintraub, Calabasas.
Second by Stuart Siegel.
Thank you. Let me take a vote on that. Kelly Honig.
Aye.
Karen Farrar.
Aye.
Stuart Siegel.
Yes.
Alicia Weintraub.
Aye.
Illece Buckley Weber. Aye. The motion carries 5-0. Let's move on to public comment period. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker pursuant to California Government Code Section 54954.2. The governing board is prohibited from discussing or taking immediate action on any item not on the agenda unless it can be demonstrated that the item is of an emergency nature or the need to take action arose subsequent to the posting of the agenda. Mr. Dipple, do we have any public comments?
I have not received any public comments either via email or telephone, and there's nobody that I'm aware of that's on the line that wants to offer public comments, but I guess we can wait and see.
Thank you. Let's move on to the consent calendar. Consent calendar items will be approved in one motion unless removed for separate discussion or action. Do any of the governing board members want to remove any of the consent items from the consent calendar? Hearing none, then if I can get a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar.
Motion to approve the consent calendar by Stuart Siegel.
Second, Kelly Honig.
Thank you. I'll take a vote. Kelly Honig.
Sorry. Aye.
Karen Farrar.
Aye.
Stuart Siegel.
Yes.
Alicia Weintraub.
Aye.
Illece Buckley Weber. Aye. The consent calendar is approved 5-0. Thank you. Let's move on to the information items. Today, we're going to start with a Metro update from Ara Najarian from Metro Board. Mr. Najarian, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Great, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for inviting me. I do apologize. Last month, I know I was on the agenda, but I caught a little bug and was not in great shape, but I appreciate being rescheduled. As you know, I represent most of the cities on this COG, if not all of them, on the Metro Board. I'm one of the 4 independent cities representatives. And the Metro Board continues to be a very dynamic agency. It's always changing. In fact, coming up, we are going to be losing Supervisor Ridley Thomas. He is termed out. He will most likely be elected to a city council position. And there will be the new county supervisor will have his seat. The other person we're losing is John Fasana. Many of you know him well. He served quite a long time on the Metro Board, perhaps since 1990, if not earlier. He is retiring from public service, so there will be a new representative from the San Gabriel Valley. I am sitting this year as the 2nd vice chair. Ahead of me is Hilda Solis, supervisor as vice chair, and the mayor of LA, Eric Garcetti, is serving as chair again. He gets the chair every 3 years. So it's in that way, fortunately or unfortunately, that many of the plans and projects that the city of LA holds near and dear to their hearts really becomes a reality on the Metro Board. And of course, having 4 votes on the board is also a huge bonus for him to advance his agenda. I'm just going to hit on a couple items. Perhaps we can come back later months. Just the general theme of the MTA is that we're becoming more and more of a social service organization and a little bit less of a transit organization. And the reason I say that is we're becoming very committed to homelessness, not just in our stations, but around our stations as well. We have a dedicated teams that go out and try and reach out. Remember when homelessness was our #1 problem 8 months ago? We seem to have forgotten about that, but in the transit system, it still is a concern for us. We took a little bit of a pivot in terms of safety. We had previously a tripartite security system going with the LAPD, the LA County Sheriffs, and the City of Long Beach Police Department patrolling the systems. What the board has decided to do a couple months ago was to look into, I don't want to use the word defund, but to redirect some resources to some of those social issues, mental health outreach teams, to not always have someone with a gun be the first point of contact for riders or residents who may have some issues that they need to be dealt with. Metro is committed to affordable housing. We have a plan for transit-oriented communities, which if you're a planner is always a good thing. Put your dense housing near the large transit stops. Metro has been partnering with affordable housing developers to bring as much affordable housing to those housing projects on the transit lines as possible. So we're doing more and more of that. Freeways are falling out of favor as a general trend. Freeways are almost becoming a 4-letter word. I know for folks, for cities such as your COG and the other group I represent up in the Antelope Valley, freeways are the only game in town. We need our cars to get anywhere because we don't have a robust transit system reaching out. But they're just becoming a 4-letter word. An example is a proposal to widen the 5 and the 605 freeway interchange to cure one of their hotspots. And there's a lot of opposition because there would be some homes taken away. One of the most bold projects that Metro is embarking on is something called the Fareless Transit System. That means that anyone that wants to ride the system can do so for free. The we weren't getting a lot of revenue from the fare box anyway. We were down in the 25% range and dipping in certain areas. But the board decided to try and develop a system where it's free for everyone. Of course, the idea is get them out of the cars. Problem is, how do you pay for that? An idea that is floating out there, it used to be called congestion pricing. Now it's called traffic reduction because that sounds like a better sell for everyone. And that is to charge people who want to either travel in their vehicles on a particular corridor, let's say the 101 corridor, or to cross into a certain cordoned area. And other cities in Europe have this as well, such as London. But let's say you want to go downtown or you want to get near the airport. Once you cross a certain line and boundary, you will be charged automatically for your entrance into there. The idea is two-part: to gain revenue, which we would use to fund the fareless transit, but to also reduce the number of cars that are coming in so we can keep a very smooth flow of traffic. The third possible way of charging people is vehicle miles traveled. And that's something that I am not in favor of. My constituents in the Antelope Valley, who like you rely on the car to get downtown, for example, are going to be paying a much greater price than other folks who live in the downtown area or in the urban core of the region and have a lot less miles to drive. Perhaps a cordon might be the best, but when you do that, you really have to beef up the transit at the same time to give those people an option to take fast, reliable, and regular transit. So you don't wait for one bus, let's say from Calabasas to get downtown, whereas folks who live a little closer have great bus service. They've got rail lines, they've got a bus service, and it's much more convenient to leave your car at home and to take the transit into your place of work. So Metro is working on that. Above all, we're trying to be fair about this. And the supervisor, your supervisor, Sheila Kuehl, and the supervisor for the Antelope Valley, Catherine Barger, and myself, we're sort of representing the furthest away from the downtown core. And we're all looking for equity in this. We don't want to saddle communities with an unbearable burden and cost burden that is just not fair compared to other residents and other communities. We'll see how that develops. It's going to take a little bit of time. We're hoping, of course, to get some generous federal funding to make this a reality. We don't know how that's going to go. I think we're all looking to see what happens in the election. But that is where the general direction of Metro, and that's one of their biggest projects at this point, is this fareless transit, coupled with the traffic reduction program to get cars off the street and to get more revenue to fund the fareless transit.
Thank you,
I'm gonna
Mr.
leave it at
Najarian.
that. Yes.
No, I was just thanking you. I thought you were finished. I apologize for interrupting.
No, I'm done. And if you have time for questions, I'll be happy to. If not, I'll be happy to join you at any other meeting that you want to update you on any particular item that's interesting.
Thank you. I think we have time for a couple of questions. Does anybody have any questions? And that means open to the alternates or anybody on the call? Seeing none.
Elise, I have a couple of questions. Ara, I appreciate you joining us, and my regular contact with your deputy, Maureen Micheline, who provides support and assistance. With regard to congestion pricing or traffic reduction, it seems like that, in 2008, Metro came to the voters and said, we want you to approve a 50-cent sales tax because that's going to solve our problems. And then 10 years later, or 8 years later, we do measure M, and Metro says, you know, we need another half cent because it's going to solve all of our problems. And then less than 2 years after Metro telling us that Measure M is going to solve their problem, now Metro is looking at another way to get money from motorists who in our subregion really don't have another alternative. I mean, we have one bus that runs down the 101 and one that runs down Coast Highway, and that's it. And so it seems like that, you know, Metro is continuing to go back and ask for more and more and more when, and I'm going to be on my soapbox just for a second, for the last 30 years, Metro has spent billions of dollars on transit, and there's not a proportionate increase in transit travelers. And yet Metro is continuing to not fund freeway improvements or highway improvements, at least significant ones, but is looking more at transit when most areas in the LA area are still auto dependent.
Well, that's true, Terry. So you raise a couple points. Metro has gone, and let's not forget Prop A and Prop C, the gas tax revenues that we're getting, along with Prop R and Proposition M. And it's never enough for Metro, I'll tell you that, because the goals that many bring to the board are made without financial constraint. There's a huge push currently to extend the Crenshaw line into West Hollywood. And although that's a very meritorious transit line, we just don't have the money for that. That doesn't stop the advocates for that to really push, and money is borrowed from here, and maybe it's from the highway fund, and maybe it's from transit lines, which could reach out to the West Valley. There is an insatiable appetite, unconstrained by the fiscal realities, to build transit lines. Now, unfortunately, as you pointed out, the increase in transit has not materialized. In fact, transit ridership is dipping. So we're hoping, and we're trying to find ways, regardless of expanding our system, to get people back into the transit system. But Terry, you're right. I mean, you do a great job with myself and Maureen and explaining to me what your city's needs are and what your expectations are. We just get outvoted. I tell you that, a Sepulveda corridor project, which is extremely important, it carries with it a huge, an enormous price tag, which is going to gobble up, any sort of Measure M funding that isn't in use currently at the moment. You guys have, last year or the year before were quick out of the gate, and we got some improvements for the interchanges out there at the 101, and I was there for a couple of those, and that was great. But right now, it's just huge. The Gold Line extension to the east side. These are huge, expensive projects that have huge political backers on that, and with disregard to, waiting in line. Imagine you're waiting in line at Starbucks, and 3-4 people jump in front of you and push you back. And when you get to the front, the coffee's all gone. That's a lot what some of us on the board feel. And I speak out against it every time I can, realizing that what we do have to work as a board, there has to be some collegiality, but we want equity. That has been my mantra since day one, to bring equity to the other cities that are not the city of Los Angeles and in that central core.
I have a comment, more of a question to follow up on Terry's comment. And that's just, this is yet, another example of, in my opinion, the enormous unworkability of Los Angeles County as a county of this size, and how that negatively affects us out here on the edge of the county, because we are basically hostage to, you know, the 490 other square miles of the county that have, you know, not only transit issues, but many other issues. And yet none of this either benefits us or even really affects us in any significant way, because we're always last in the line to benefit from all of these things. Yet we are beholden to a county board of supervisors and a, you know, a huge geographical area that is just drastically different from our little cog area. We get a lot of benefits from the county. I don't want to be a, you know, a big drag on that, because we do get obviously funding, Ms. all of the things that have benefited our cities, but in circumstances like this, and in particularly COVID, and we are being dragged along and not receiving any benefits, in my opinion.
Elise, if I may,
Thank you.
I just have a
Go ahead.
comment. I would like to say, I'd like to applaud Terry for bringing this up. It's something that I've felt for many years, that all we are is being taxed and taxed and taxed. And I guess other than some of the projects we have with the COG, at what point do we say enough? At what point, what's fair? When they talk about your fair share, I don't know what the fair share is, but I thank Terry for bringing this up. And I certainly appreciate, Ara, all the time and effort that you put in on all these years with the COG issues. So I just want to express my thanks to Terry for bringing this very important subject up in the COG meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Anybody else? Okay, so we'll move on. Thank you, Mr. Najarian. We'll look forward to seeing you maybe in another 6 months or next year.
Thank you so much.
Stay well.
Good luck, everyone.
Thanks, Ara.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now we are going to move on to the executive director's report. And that was, let's see, that was attachment to the agenda, pages 7 through 9. Go ahead, Terry.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll call your attention to the report. I won't highlight the entire report, but I will pick and choose a few things that are most important. The evacuation plan, as was discussed at the last COG meeting when Kevin McGowan, the director of the County Offices of Emergency Management, joined us. Kevin has provided an update that's included in my evacuation plan overview, and is committed to convening a meeting, a sit-down meeting actually, with the COG cities and the county fire sheriff and his office in mid-November. And we'll then begin working with the individual cities on the fire zone and other hazard zone areas, and then expects to have the evacuation plan completed within 6 months of the first meeting. So that's very encouraging. Tomorrow I'll be participating in the LA County City Summit on Climate Vulnerability. Other cities can register for that at eventbrite.com. I appreciate Ara responding to the concerns about the congestion pricing and traffic reduction, and I will continue to keep the governing board updated on that. SCAG has requested an opportunity to make a presentation to the COG on their regional climate adaptation framework, and I wanted to know from the governing board if you felt that you wanted this meeting, or if you would prefer that that SCAG present at a meeting of the COG city planners that could then elevate that information internally through your city, as opposed to it coming to the COG. On homeless outreach, Gabriel continues to do a great job. And I have a meeting today with LASA, because LASA's come under some scrutiny from the county for not being as responsive to the COGs as other COGs think they should be. And so that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I reported on the broadband issue last month. Let's see. On our agenda later this morning will be a discussion for the SCAG Regional Early Action Planning Grant, which is called REAP. And that's something that we can take advantage of. And then lastly, the Metro Next Gen bus study that Metro's been working on for a couple of years is coming to the Metro board tomorrow, Thursday for a vote. And the only real change in our subregion, as we only have 2 bus lines, is in Malibu. They're going to be making a change related to the Point Doom deviation. And other than that, there's really no other service changes proposed for our area. I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has a question on the executive director's report or anything else.
Any questions? Did I hear somebody have a question? No questions for Terry? So Terry,
No, I just,
oh, I'm sorry, go
oh,
ahead, Alicia.
sorry, Elise. No, I'm thrilled to hear about the further meeting with the county emergency management and that would be developed within 6 months after the meeting. I think that's great news and will benefit all of our communities.
Thank you. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'd like to hear how people feel about the SCAG meeting. I think it was, did you say a climate action plan, adaptation plan, Terry?
Yes, climate adaptation.
I know I'd love to hear about it, but that I don't want to speak for everybody. Does anybody else have any thoughts on it, or would you rather it go to our planners, which is a great option too?
No, I think I'd like to hear it.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I'm fine hearing it.
Okay, so it sounds like 3 of us want to hear it. So if you wouldn't mind, we can limit it in time and scope if you don't mind, Terry, but we would like to hear it.
Yeah, SCAG has indicated that it's a 10-minute PowerPoint and with 5 minutes for Q&A.
That sounds perfect. Okay, so if there's no other questions, thank you, Terry. We will move on to member cities reports. Hang on a second. Let's start with Agoura Hills. Mr. Hamburger?
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. In regards to updates on COVID, not a ton has changed. We're still on staggered schedules and doing most of our services online. We are probably like everybody else looking at Halloween coming up the following week and looking at all the alternatives, encouraging residents to decorate homes and do more of a drive-by type thing, kind of almost if you're looking at holiday lights. And we've had a lot of response to that, so very positive. We had a little scare with the fire this past weekend, but it was a good test for us. We actually got to do a small test of kind of a pandemic style EOC. So that's a positive, and kind of looking at how we'd operate that way. So it was a good test run without, luckily the fire was fairly small in nature. And then I think just for us, it's continuing to work with our local businesses as we start to get to the months where it can be colder and potentially rain. We're working with them on different alternatives for the outdoor dining. Unfortunately, with LA County behind on the progress that Ventura County and I know even Orange County has made. I know that's been difficult on a lot of our businesses, and we've actually have asked our staff to start taking a look at the long term of how we deal with this if we start running into more beyond January, February of next year, and even after that, when we start to really fully open, how do we deal with the fact that there's going to be part of the public that don't feel comfortable indoors? So we're looking at that and the effects on parking in the centers, and we're working with all of the commercial brokers and our local center owners and the businesses as well. So with that, if there's anything else, Dennis or Elise, that you wanted to add?
Dennis, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't. I mean, I'm just still very proud of the way we've handled the COVID issues, and I agree with Nate. Hopefully, at some point, the county will allow us a little more flexibility as far as opening some other stores or and restaurants. So anyway, thank you, Nate. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Weber. I have nothing to add to what Nate has said. We're moving along slowly, so that's where we're at. So let's move on to Calabasas. Ray?
Yes, good morning, everyone. I could just ditto what Nate said. He said it so well and eloquently, but I'll add a few other comments and then ask Alicia to embellish on those. We continue to be concerned about large gatherings in our gated communities and have been working in terms of sending out correspondence to our HOAs, which I think is having some effect, a positive effect. Interestingly enough, it may be a continued reflection of COVID-19 fatigue, but we're seeing an interesting phenomenon with teenagers gathering in the commons, many of whom are skateboarders, and we're talking about 50, 60, 70 of them. They make their way into the commons and then over to the Civic Center. So we've been working with Chuck and his staff to deal with that. But I think it's just another reflection of kids that and parents alike just really suffering from the impact of COVID-19 and the effects that has. So we're addressing that. As Nate indicated, we're also concerned about Halloween coming up. At City Council's meeting last week, there was some discussion about banning trick-or-treating, much like what the city of Beverly Hills did recently. And after a discussion on that topic, the consensus of the council was to not take that step, but certainly encourage our residents to be very vigilant and careful if they're going to be trick-or-treating. And we're essentially following the county health protocols with regard to that. And other COVID-19 sort of related issues or challenges, I guess, we do have a special meeting on December 2nd when we'll be saying goodbye in a formal way to Councilmember Fred Gaines. And that will be done, unfortunately, virtually, as will our December 9th reorganization meeting as well. So we continue to move along in that fashion. When I first started with the city back in May, it never occurred to me that we would be in October and November and still meeting virtually through Zoom meetings, but here we are, right? Not a whole lot has changed with regard to that. We did have an unfortunate situation over the last several weeks with 3 of our employees that contracted COVID-19. That's the bad news. The good news is that they appear to be recovering quite nicely and there's been no other spread. So we're very thankful about that. And then lastly, I wanted to mention that my 6-month contract with the city is coming to a close next month. I expect that at the council's meeting next week, the council will be entertaining a contract with a new interim city manager as CalPERS requirements do not allow me to have an extension. You have a defined period, a start date and an end date as an interim, and we're sort of stuck with that. So with that, I'll ask Alicia to add any further comments.
No, Ray did a great job summarizing what's taking place in Calabasas. The only part I just wanted to add on is the issues that we're having with teenagers at the Commons and just throughout the community. And I strongly believe that this is all related to the fact that our kids have been home for 7 months with no structure and with no end in sight. I think it's something that we need to all be very concerned with and do everything we can to support the school district and their desire to get our children back. As I've heard other COG board members talk about making sure our businesses can survive in the winter and opening up more things. We have to really do what we can, in my opinion, to help get our kids back, because the situations that we're seeing in our community and elsewhere, it's just not natural or sustainable for children to be home for, I mean, it's going on 7 months. So that's my plug for today. And just wanted to thank Ray again for everything that he's done for the city of Calabasas. No way to express enough appreciation for that. So thanks.
Thank you, Alicia. I just have a question for you and Ray. I'm just wondering, and this may be a dumb question, but are the teenagers wearing face coverings?
No, that's not wearing, most of them aren't wearing face coverings. And I know Chuck's on this call, not wearing face coverings. Our shopping centers offer them to them. They're defiant in not wanting to wear them. They speak back to security. They speak back to law enforcement. But we've had some things that have never occurred in our community with youth. And it's just, yeah, I mean, Chuck's on the call, so he can elaborate more. But no, we're having issues with face coverings. We're just having issues all around.
Thank you. Okay, next let's go to Hidden Hills.
Hi.
Is Carrie on the line?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Just, you know, we don't have the business challenges that you all have. So COVID some days doesn't even feel like it exists. As for Halloween, like all of you, we do have a hot spot in our city that attracts a lot of people, and we've been working to get messages out and probably be sending more messages out. Our HOA has put together a laundry list of activities, alternative type activities. It was interesting when the Halloween guidelines came out that said no indoor or outdoor Halloween parties. But then last week it said you can have up to three families outdoors for 2 hours. I don't know if any of you saw the one note, there was no singing. I thought that was interesting, wondering how they're going to enforce that. So I don't know how the two reconcile themselves, or if you can have an outdoor Halloween party with 3 families. It certainly makes Chuck's job difficult to figure out how long people have been there and if they've been singing. In non-COVID related, we've been thinking a lot about fire season. I love it when I wake up and it's overcast, because I feel like we get a day off. We had a great meeting with Chief Smith and some of his crews and our park ranger and some city staff and sheriff's deputies about a week and a half ago. And it was really just a make sure everyone knew each other, because there's a lot of new faces in town. Kind of how Nate got it firsthand. We thought, well, maybe we'll do this when there isn't a fire. It was a very good meeting. Sadly, I want to share with all of you that we got in the goat game. We hired 805 goats to do brush clearance around our perimeter, extend our brush clearance perimeter, paid them a lot of money. And unfortunately, they walked off the job a week and a half ago. We are now chasing them and seeking legal action against them. If any of you want to follow up with me on our experience with the 805 goats, which has had a sterling reputation, I'd be happy to go into more detail on that offline. And lastly, we are actually in non-COVID news. We are undergoing a large undergrounding project, undergrounding 9 power poles on one of our main roads, Long Valley, and burying the wires. It's about 2 years in making to get to this point. A lot of work for 2 of us to kind of shepherd, and 2 council members, but we're really excited about that. So that's all I have. I'm happy to answer questions. Stuart, Laura, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, this is Stuart. Gary did a great job. I have a series of notes here. you managed to cover every single one of them. So no, things are just, you know, in the new normal in Hidden Hills.
All right.
Laura, do you have any comments? Okay, then moving on, let's go to Malibu.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Nice to see all of you. Sort of what everybody else said, and then I'll add the Malibu twist to it. City Hall is still working remotely for the most part with critical kind of building, rebuilding efforts being done out of City Hall. Some of the big issues that we're seeing right now, one is trash throughout our city and on the beaches. I've noticed pretty much everywhere I go, every freeway, every overpass, underpass, exit, entryway to the freeway is covered with trash. So we're really working with our partner agencies and Caltrans to do what we can to get that picked up. I don't know if that's something you all are concerned with as well. We've also seen an incredible increase in the number of RVs parked throughout the city and the number of homeless encampments. And so working with the station and the department to do some targeted outreach to those individuals. You know, obviously of concern is the homeless encampments as we are in fire season. I get the pleasure of living in Agoura Hills at Liberty Canyon, where every single thing that goes wrong seems to happen. So I get to worry about the fire at Liberty Canyon, coming into Malibu and burning my house down at the same time this past weekend, and then another fire in Malibu. So good times for me. I did want to mention that for Halloween, the city of Malibu is partnering with the Malibu Film Society, and we're doing a big drive-in movie night where the chili cook-off is normally held. So if you want to promote that in your city, we'd love to have people come. I know it's a good way for people to celebrate the Halloween safely. So that information is available on our website, or we could push that out. On the skateboarding issue, Ray and Alicia, I actually just sent you a link to the ordinance that we have here in Malibu. We adopted it maybe 10, 12 years ago, but it is a pretty basic ordinance that allows you to post no skateboarding, and it's something that's been pretty effective in Malibu. And then also want to share that we do have a skate park, a temporary skate park that opened next to Bluffs Park that is open by reservation only, safe for COVID, under COVID rules. So certainly share that with your residents and send people over there to skate safely in our new skate park. In terms of our EOC, I did want to just share with other city managers that we recently entered into an agreement with Oracle, and they developed some software for us that allows us to do all of our EOC functions remotely. I know we're all kind of doing that piecemeal, but they came up with this amazing software, which is a little complicated to learn, but I think it's going to be something moving forward that's going to be very valuable to all of us. So I'm happy to share that with anybody if you're interested, as we seem to be stuck in the COVID loop for a while. We also have an election coming up in 2 weeks. We have 2 council members that are termed out, Mayor Pro Tem Skylar Peak, Councilmember Jefferson Wagner, and Councilmember Rick Mullen is up for re-election. So on December 14th, we're going to be doing outgoing comments to the council members that are leaving and welcoming in some new council members, again, doing that all virtually. So you should be getting information from my staff about how we want to acknowledge all of those people. And so if you are able to send a video, that's what we're asking for in lieu of coming on. You can do that ahead of time. I also wanted to share, I think I've mentioned this to different people in the COG, that we're working with flame mappers on the beacon box proposal, which is a red box, looks like a lock box that will be posted at entrances to the neighborhoods with actual paper maps, that in the event of a fire where there aren't communication services available for for fire first responders, they can actually pick up the maps and they'll know where to go in the neighborhoods. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's a really great low-cost solution. And I bring that up because the more beacon boxes we order, the lower the price gets. So if anybody in the COG wants to jump on board, let me know. And then last, I just wanted to let everybody know that at the League annual conference last week, I was appointed to the League's board of directors as an at-large member. So I just wanted to share that, and happy to work on all of our behalf with the League throughout this year. So Karen, did I miss anything that you wanted me to mention? Karen, you're muted. Okay, well, I'm going to guess I said everything I needed to say. So thanks, everyone.
Well, thank you, Reva, and congratulations. It'll be nice to have you so active in the League, so that we have a good source of communication. So thank you for that. So now let's move on to Westlake Village. I saw there's Rob.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Yeah, everything's going along very similar to other cities in Westlake Village. So I don't really want to repeat, but definitely feeling the COVID fatigue, and so the anxiety is there across our community. Halloween and the holiday celebrations was all virtual. We didn't cancel Halloween, just like all of you, but have been on a campaign to encourage safe behavior, and that'll continue through, obviously, the Halloween day. We have a big event typically in our Three Springs neighborhood, so we'll have big signboards about no gathering and trick-or-treating not recommended. We'll close the community park there and work through that. And thanks to Chuck and his team for helping us prepare for that. We appreciate that. Continue to support local businesses as much as possible throughout this period. The other thing that we're a little concerned about is just with the national election that's coming up, and likely protests that we think will probably emerge, and hopefully not civil unrest, but that's something that we've been talking with Chuck about. I know he's been thinking about that and preparing for that with the other public safety agencies in the region, and maybe they'll share a little bit about that. The other big thing for us, as you all know, we had a tragic incident on our streets on September 29th, where 2 children were killed by a drunk driver. So the council is very actively involved in supporting that family, and also taking a very hard and deliberate look at pedestrian safety throughout the city. And so we had special meetings about that, and that will continue. And we have no council election this year because Kelly and Ned were appointed for the next 4 years. So congrats to them, but I think everybody knows that. That's all I had. Kelly and Ned, maybe you have some things to add. I don't know.
I just wanted to say just thank you to everyone who reached out to me personally and to our city, from all of you that did regarding the tragic incident and loss of the Iskander boys. And also to Chuck, thank you for your sensitivity in dealing with the family on this issue. It's much appreciated.
Thank you. Ned, do you have anything to add?
No, just, we're all feeling pretty lousy about the boys, and
Right.
I hope it leads to some real dramatic action for the council to take on safety here.
Good. Okay, thank you. So that completes the information items. Let's move on to action items. We're going to start with Measure M, 7th year project list, which was in the attachment pages 10 to 12. Terry, I think you'll probably start this, right?
Yes, I will. The Technical Advisory Committee reviewed the 7th year proposal for the COG cities for our Measure M funding, and is recommending the attached report, which includes Agoura Hill's request for, and I'll say that all of the cities have either requested their amount, nobody's exceeded amounts, and so everyone is doing well from that standpoint. Agoura Hills is requesting approximately 4.6 million for the Canaan Corridor Safety Operations and Capacity Enhancement Project. Calabasas is requesting a $550,000 allocation for the Mulholland Highway gap closure. Hidden Hills is requesting their $270,000 for their existing Long Valley project. And LA County has weighed in with a large project of $7.3 million, which includes 4.5 unallocated carryover. And that's for two projects, one on Thousand Oaks Boulevard near Westlake, and both are near Westlake and Agoura. And the other one is communication gap closure for the central traffic systems upgrade. And so those are the projects. The one thing that I would add is that with the Measure M and the Measure R, but more so with Measure M funding that has been allocated to the COG every year we're going to receive about $13 million going forward. And for those cities that have not submitted projects, I just want to encourage them. I mean, if there's no projects, we don't want to spend the money for frivolous projects, and no one is going to do that. But it's important that if we have projects that we advance them, because I'm concerned that with the direction that Metro is going, as alluded to by Ara Najarian, that there may be an attempt, as there has been in other subregions, where the Metro Board has pulled money back that was allocated to the subregion because it wasn't being spent as quickly as they were anticipating. And then Metro has allocated that for other projects without a repayment plan. So I just want to make sure that we continue to stay on track with our Metro funding and advance projects that are well thought out and important for the cities, and continue to draw down on the funding that's allocated for us. So with that, I would conclude my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? So Terry, do you need us to actually take action? Do you need a vote in a second, a motion in a second?
I do need a motion.
Great. So if I can get a motion and a second to approve the Measure M 7th year project list. Anybody?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Alicia. And I think that
Second,
Kelly made the second. Okay, so let's take a vote. Kelly Honig,
Aye.
Alicia Weintraub,
Aye.
Karen Farrar. Is Karen here? Okay, Stuart
She's
Siegel.
having trouble unmuting. I'm sorry, she texted me, so just so you know, she is there.
Okay, and how is she voting on this?
Karen, if you could text me your vote and I'll say it out loud. You can go ahead if you have a quorum vote, you can pass it.
In the meantime, I'll move on to Stuart Siegel from Hidden Hills.
Muted.
You're muted, Stuart. Stuart.
This is Reva. I'm voting on behalf of Karen Fair, having trouble unmuting, and she's voting yes on that motion.
Thank you. How about you, Stuart?
Yes.
Thank you. And Elise Buckley Weber from Agoura Hills, aye. So the motion carries 5-0. Okay, thank you, Terry, on that one. So let's move on to the lobbyist retention. And there was, Terry also gave us an attachment on that. It was pages 13 and 14. I hope everybody got to read it. What we thought we'd do, Kelly and I have interviewed 2 lobbyists, and there is a third name that Kelly has, but we thought first we'd have a discussion on whether or not, what's the thoughts of the COG members on whether or not we would be hiring a lobbyist. And if we do, then at the next meeting, if there's consensus to do that, we would move that the next meeting, we would submit the names and the proposals by the various lobbyists. So let's start with, why don't we start with Mayor Honig, because she was involved in this issue.
Our council does not wish that the COG hire a lobbyist at this time.
Okay, how about in terms of discussion? Laura, are you on the line?
I am, yes.
Do you want to give us a little bit of rundown? Laura's now been very active in the housing bills this legislative session. And so she's got some firsthand experience with the legislators and the various groups around Southern California. So Laura, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, I think I covered it at the last meeting. I mean, I jumped off last year at the recommendation of Senator Stern, which I think was mirrored by the other representatives we had in our last meeting about the upsides of the COG having a lobbyist in terms of just kind of looking out for the region as a whole. So as I said at the last meeting, I thought it would be helpful to have some of these lobbyists come and chat with us about what they can do for us and if they feel they can bring enough monetary value to the table to cover their costs for the year. So I think there are a lot of upsides. I know Senator Stern feels very strongly about it for our region. But obviously it's up to the cities and, I defer to whatever the whole group feels is best.
Thank you. Does anybody else? Karen, you look like you want to speak. You have to unmute. There you go.
Sorry, I was on my phone and at the beginning of the meeting I could unmute and then later I couldn't. Anyway, no, Malibu would not be in favor of having a lobbyist on behalf of the COG. And the first thing, I think the most obvious, is that we don't all have the same representation at the state level. So we have a lobbyist that we've had for decades for the city of Malibu. We have a successful relationship with them. And I will just echo what Kelly said. It's not something that the city of Malibu is interested in pursuing.
Thank you. Stuart, do you have any comments?
Well, we also hired our own lobbyist. I have a sense that having the ability to work quickly, be light on your feet. Laura's done a great job on that, where these bills literally are bouncing back and forth on an hourly basis sometimes. I don't see the COG being nimble enough to do that. So I don't particularly think it's a good idea. I haven't queried my counsel, but we just got them to agree a week ago to hire our own lobbyist.
Thank you. Mayor Weintraub, your thoughts?
The same at this time. I also haven't surveyed my council, but I don't think it would be something that the city would support. We would probably do it first in-house before doing it for the COG.
Thank you. How about you, Ned? Any comments?
I think it's pretty clear that the COG has too many different interests, really, that make a single voice almost impossible.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Weber, any comments?
Thank you, Elise. This is my own thoughts. I would be opposed to spending the money to go down this road. No, we just went over our budget our last meeting, and things are tight, and I don't think we can afford to at this point in time allocate monies for still another outlay. We've just, unfortunately, we've had some folks leave the city employment, and to spend the money on this, I think would be the wrong thing to do at this stage. So I personally would be opposed to it, but I haven't heard what the rest of the council feels. So I would defer to Mayor Buckley Weber.
Thank you. So we have not taken it to our full council yet. We would have done so once the COG would be making that recommendation to do so, which one thing I did learn in grammar school is I can count. So, and I got that from Mayor Pro Tem Weber as well. Learning to count is an important thing when you're working with consensus. I do just want to say that in a perfect world, I would have loved to have had a lobbyist for the COG, because I think there are some issues that we can all agree upon, and it would have been nice to have somebody that we could rely upon going up to Sacramento and really pushing for our local control and pushing for, one size doesn't fit all, especially in the very high fire severity zone, et cetera. You all know the issues. But to me, it seems like unless all 5 cities are on board, it sends a very mixed message, which is not a positive thing in Sacramento. Because if we go to our legislators and we say, well, 3 of our cities support this and 2 of our cities don't, it's a mixed message, and they say, well, why should we listen to the 3 of you if the other 2 aren't? So in my opinion, it would have had to be all 5 cities in and all 5 cities together. And as Mr. Davis said, I'm not sure that there's enough issues that we all agree on. And it's not even really just the 5 of us, it's all of our councils. So it's getting 25 people to agree on bills at various, issues. So with that, if I can have, I'm actually going to take a motion on this and a second to, a motion and a second to not retain a lobbyist for the COG at this time. If I have a motion and a second.
I'll make that motion, Elise.
Thank you, Karen. And a second?
Second by Stuart.
Thank you, Stuart. So let's do the voting. Kelly Honig?
Aye. Okay, we're voting to not get it, right?
Exactly.
Okay, just to clarify. Yeah.
Yes.
So a kind of an, all right. Aye.
Yeah, a double negative or whatever. Okay.
Yes.
We're just following suit with the propositions on the ballot. We're just going to make this super confusing, but this is to not retain a lobbyist after our discussions. So Westlake, Kelly Honig said aye. Karen Farrar from Malibu.
Aye.
Stuart Siegel, Hidden Hills.
Aye.
Alicia Weintraub, Calabasas.
Aye.
Elise Buckley Weber from Agoura Hills, aye. So the motion passes 5-0, and the COG will not be hiring a lobbyist for the COG at this time. Thank you all. Let's move on to the next item, which is the SCAG Regional Early Action Planning Grant, and we will turn to Mr. Dipple. This is in the attachment, pages 15 to 17 in the agenda attachment.
Thank you, Madam President. SCAG, as I mentioned, has been allocated $47 million from the state housing and community development to work on housing related issues. Of that allocation, they've allotted approximately 23 million available to the sub-regional partnership project. And originally, as you may recall, I reported that our allocation was $16,000, which really was not going to do anything even for one city, let alone for 5 cities. As a result of that, I talked with SCAG, and they reevaluated the program, and they committed to a $100,000 minimum to the smaller COGs, such as ours. In the meetings that the COG held with city planners and SCAG on 2 occasions, we approached it different ways with SCAG, allowing them to permit the COG to divide the funding similar to how we divide Measure M and Measure R funds. So each city would receive a proportionate share to help offset their general plan update and their housing element update that most of the cities are currently doing. Unfortunately, SCAG would not permit that. And so we went back and scratched our head a little bit and had some other discussions about what would be the most effective way that the COG could utilize these funds. And in discussing it with the planners, we felt that by doing two things, number one, a series of workshops that would be most likely virtual under the circumstances with COVID, but would provide educational information for COG residents with regard to how RENA works, how the cities are attempting to address RENA, what were the targets like, and how do we move forward. Also, the planners were interested in an analysis of the new state legislation. I'm not talking about necessarily proposed legislation, but new state legislation, how that housing legislation affects the COG cities. And then also looking at growth constraints, such as high-risk areas like fire zones, flood zones, hillside areas, and what, in discussing with the planners and discussing with SCAG, what the COG would do with the $100,000 would be to work with SCAG to hire a consultant that could, number one, produce a report, a final document that each city would receive a copy of, that would kind of be an educational overview of RENA and the process, and then how the new legislation and analysis of that for the cities. It wouldn't necessarily be just tailored to one city. It would be something that would provide an overview for all of the cities, but would also be an important resource for the cities. And then those public workshops that the planners felt would be additional support for them with their housing elements, that they have community outreach as part of the housing element updates. And by doing this combined, that it would be helpful for the COG cities and not only the elected officials, but also for city planners. And I would just finalize as saying that there would be no fiscal impact to the COG, that the consultant or consultant team would be hired. I would work with SCAG to accomplish that. And then I would work with your city planners on this, this project. And I do not, and nor do the planners, think that it would take a significant amount of their time, nor do I think it would take a significant amount of my time that would take away from other COG priorities and ongoing matters that the COG has.
Okay, so let's have a discussion. Kelly Honig, would you like to start?
No, I don't want to start. I'm going to wait.
Okay. And who would like to start the discussion on this, of whether or not they believe this report is useful?
I have a question. I wanted to know, actually, I wanted to hear from the city managers on this one.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
wanted
city
to know,
manager,
like,
would this be helpful at all?
Because it would be going to a staff level. I mean, it would be, I'm curious what the city managers have to say.
I have the same question. So can we have some city managers weigh in? I see Rob up there. I know Nate's on the call, Reva, Carrie.
I'm going to defer. I'll defer to Rob on this and see what he says, because, you know, Elise and I had a discussion about this with Terry. So,
yeah.
I apologize. I had to step away and I missed all of the beginning of that. So I'm not going to be much help since I wasn't in my
problem.
office. Sorry.
let's have Nate. Do you want to start? Okay. Nobody wants to start, so I'll start. Okay. Here's my view on it, is that to spend money on a report that tells us about the RENA process, it doesn't do anything for anyone. It takes time and it takes money. Everybody knows the RENA process. Some cities are already in the process of appealing their RENA numbers. So it's, to me, that in and of itself is not a worthwhile expenditure of time or money. However, with that said, if it's something that can be written about RENA numbers in relation to the high fire severity zones, flood zones, and things like that, that would be helpful, because then we could all use that. Our staff could use that. It might be something that we use to influence our legislators down the road, or not even that far down the road, but next year with the housing bills that we know are coming back, we'd be able to point to something that says, look, here's the issue we have. All of this development is going to be in the Santa Monica Mountains. It's all going to be in the very high fire severity zone, if that's true. I'm just saying, to look into it from that aspect, I would support it. But just about RENA numbers and the process sounds like a government report that's going to sit on a bookshelf, in my opinion. Anybody else?
At least this is Nathan. Also, I just to echo what you said, we actually talked internally about that. And again, if it's helpful for the region, we're definitely willing to be players in that. But for us individually, I don't think it makes a ton of sense. The RENA process is pretty technical and pretty difficult. And we've worked through that and been involved in that from day one, as I'm probably sure all the rest of the city managers have as well. And so I don't know that going through that's going to reap a ton of reward for us. But again, if it's beneficial for the region, then we're definitely will be part of that. But I don't know there'll be a ton of benefit from it.
Now, we haven't talked about this, Nate, but would it be useful for you and our planners if the report was specifically dealing with with RENA numbers in the high fire severity zone, very high fire severity zone?
Yeah, if we felt that it was able to change the formula, but I will tell you that we did actually, Romero and I did a pretty deep dive into the RENA calculations, and there is some consideration of very high severity zone fire zones in that formula. They also look at past fire damage in homes that were rebuilt and how those calculate into the numbers as well. Also, I don't know that it's going to totally change their formula, and I mean, I don't want to speak as an expert on it, but that's at least what we were quickly able to do in the last couple of days to look at. So,
thank you. Anybody else want to speak on this?
Yeah, I changed my mind. Now I'm going to speak. So, to follow what Illece said, Illece and I did have a discussion about this issue with Terry. I agree that generating a report on what RENA is not a useful expenditure of this money. However, my goal was with this money, as I expressed in our conversation, was that we could use the end result of this as an advocacy document. We're not going to hire a lobbyist, but that doesn't mean that we don't have advocacy issues left with our COG as the new housing legislation comes down this year in 2021. It's not going away. So dovetailing on the fire, the extreme issues that we have with RENA and, the fire zones that we all live in, a document produced with this money could be used as a legislative advocacy tool for our people in Sacramento to say to them, here are the monumental problems that we have in our region with your RENA allocations. So that was my take on the best use of this money, and I'll let Rob chime in on that if he wishes.
Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, I feel like I need to look at this a little more closely. We have not talked about this as the city managers at our TAC meeting. Probably would be a good idea to do that if this was something we want to do. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of risk here. It's not the COGS funds. These are grant funds from SCAG that we could use. And it seems like there could be an advantage there, to sort of Kelly's point. It could be something we could leverage as part of our advocacy. But But again, I feel like I just need to know a little more about what this is, and I haven't had a chance to really look at it closely.
Well, that sounds like a motion to me. Should we continue this hearing? Will we still be timely, Terry, if we were to continue this discussion after the TAC committee can talk about it in November and bring it back at the November meeting?
Yes, that should work. Let's see. I'm going back and forth right now with in discussions with SCAG to sort of fine tune it a little bit based upon the initial discussion that I had with you and Kelly. So I can present this to the city managers with more detail and then bring it back to the board next month.
I personally think it would be useful. I agree with Mayor Weintraub. It's really a city manager issue and staff issue. And so do I have a motion to continue this to the November COG meeting so that our city managers have an opportunity to discuss it at the TAC meeting?
I'll make that motion. Oh, I'll second it then.
We have a motion from Kelly Honig and a second from Alicia Weintraub. All in favor, let's go through this. Alicia, Kelly Honig?
Aye.
Karen Farrar?
Yes.
Alicia Weintraub?
Yes.
Stuart Siegel? Stuart Siegel? I can't tell if you're not, there you are.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Elise Buckley Weber from Agoura Hills. Aye, the motion carries 5-0. So Terry, you understand what we want you to do?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so now we're going to move on to public safety, legislative, and agency partner updates. Captain Becerra, let's start with you.
Hello, everybody. I was going to say it's been a tremendous couple months, especially for the city of Westlake. But then when I look at the stats that I just got from my sister cities, I just want to put a few things in perspective. So Century and Compton have had 100 shootings, 32 murders, 16 and it looks like 45 days. So if all we have to deal with is an occasional murder in our region, a fatality, a fire, I would rather be here any day of the week because we live in a tremendous community. I love it here. And I really wouldn't want to go downtown to our sister cities. Along those lines, with everything going on, we're preparing for, of course, our fire. We met with Kevin McGowan a few times now. So we had a TSET meeting with regards to Topanga preparation. We had Kevin, Drew Smith, etc. So and we're still preparing along those lines. COVID. We've knocked on wood, and I will do that because I don't want to jinx it. Our station, the station population doesn't reflect the LA County population with respect that we only have one person right now affected with COVID, and he's stuck in Colombia. So he contracted it down there, I guess. They won't let him travel here, so he's stuck there right now. So it's 1 out of 170. I'll take that stat all day long. Elections. So, and I've talked to Rob about this, is that we have been meeting with our East End Chief of Police counterparts, Ventura, Moore Park, both the East Valley and West Valley CHP captains, 3 LAPD stations, Topanga, West Valley, and Devonshire, Camarillo Police Chief, and the Park Rangers for the elections. My department is hinting that we're going to go on 12-on-12s as of November 1st. So when they hint, we have to get everything in motion. So I suspect come November 1st, we'll be at full deployment. So it just happens because of the dates is that we'll be at full deployment on Halloween because no one is really anticipating anything on Halloween, but we just need to be prepared. Some cities are open, some cities are not. But anybody that can work will be working on Halloween. And then looks like Halloween's on Saturday, and then Sunday we'll be going on 12-on-12s for that week, depending on what happens in the elections. And I'll end with this, is that, as a deputy sheriff, we see fatalities all the time. We've seen it our whole careers, but when children get hurt by a senseless crime, it rocked the entire station. And I say that because these are battle-hardened bulls that patrol your cities in uniform. They have feelings, and it was such a tremendous scene out in Westlake. But Rob and Kelly and Ned and everybody at Westlake did a tremendous job. standing tall with the family. We visited the family. The family actually came to the station to talk with the district attorney regarding all the charges. And we've assured them, despite the suspect's past, she will be held to answer for the crimes that she committed. Plain and simple. We're going to see that through. And that is all I have. Any questions?
Thank you, Captain. Does anyone have any questions of the captain? There's a lot of people on the call, so I don't see, so I'm just going to have you speak up. Well, I have a couple of questions. Captain Becerra, about the murder, we don't know where the murder was. That's my question. But the body that was dumped in Agoura Hills, do you have any more information that you can tell us about that?
No, because that's an ongoing investigation.
Okay.
The initial thought it was tied to another community is false, meaning another community in our region is false.
Okay, thank you. You've talked about Halloween election boxes. Have you had any problem with any of the official ballot boxes or any vandalism, anything involved with those?
No, none whatsoever.
Great.
And I want to say we're not anticipating protests and riots. We're just getting ready for it.
Okay, good. And what does that mean, you're getting ready for them?
Well, the 12 on 12. So whenever we say 12 on 12s, that's where all our region gets activated. If you're in uniform, you will be working that week. So all vacations, days off, so forth are canceled during that time period.
Okay, and so I would assume you're going over training exercises for riots and for protests and all of that.
Well, we are. As a matter of fact, that we're going to have another active shooter drill at Oaks Christian High School this month. As a matter of fact, I got to figure out the exact dates, see if it fits, but we're still moving forward with preparing the station for those kinds of eventualities, which I hope never happens, but I want the station.
Okay, we just want to make sure if there's peaceful protests that they stay peaceful in our cities. Domestic abuse seems to be up. That's really no surprise, but anything you can tell us in our cities that we can do to help?
You know what? It's not our region phenomena in that domestic violence and grand theft autos are up statewide. Tremendous spikes in those. It's been 7 months of COVID madness. I don't even know, and I think someone alluded to earlier, I don't even know when it's going to end. I mean, we don't see it ending anytime soon.
Right.
So,
all right, well, if there's anything we can do to help, you'll let us know. Any other questions from anyone? If not, then we are going, I just saw that Drew Smith has now, he's been here, but now I can see you. So how about we move on to you?
Well, fabulous. Thank you and good morning. Just wanted to let you know that your fire family is doing good with all the COVID-ness that's going on. Our health programs management system that's in place is keeping track of our firefighters and our firefighter families, and everybody is doing good on the COVID front. Locally, we've had a series of small fires within the COG, and they've all been human caused in nature. A lot of them are still under investigation, and it's hard to pinpoint determination of cause. But I will say it's easy to rule out lightning. Okay, so we know that we do have some interaction with folks that are out there that has caused a series of these smaller fires that were handled relatively quick, and that is because we have a very robust workforce that we can combat these fires with the largest initial attack component anywhere in the nation. We're meeting regularly with our law enforcement partners, and that's Captain Becerra. So we talk at least twice to 3 times a week just on local issues, and we are looking for best practices still within any time that we do have a fire on what the dynamics of that fire or challenges may be for an evacuation regarding, I'll just say, within the Santa Monica Mountains. And it's going to be a very dynamic and challenging situation. It's all based upon where the fire starts, what time it is, and what other environmental conditions are in place, and or whatever that day brings, it's in place on what we are going to do based upon our strategic plan that is going to have a significant amount of flexibility in it. We do a daily fire danger risk analysis. We communicate that also with sheriffs. And if we have to stand up arson watch, we communicate what area have a significant amount of vulnerability to promote that initial attack and large fire growth. So we're unified with our law partners and arson watch on tactical patrolling, as we call it, where we have our engine companies, our fire patrols that are out with law enforcement looking at different areas so we can have early warning and early mitigation of any fire start. And that's also with our daily fire danger analysis, which looks at local climatology and fuel conditions that gives us a probability for a day. And that'll launch in the potential mobilizing resources, moving resources. I'm sure as you travel along the 101 corridor right there in Agoura Hills, you see Fire Station 89 that may have anywhere between 5 and 10 fire engines sitting in front of the station. That's because we mobilize them and we put them in a position that has an increased amount of initial attack potential for the day. And we can utilize those resources in a swift, quick fashion. And we do that with our air resources as well. Just with the last couple months that we've had a significant amount of fires throughout the state of California and out actually in the Western United States. Your fire department has had at times over 250 members out fighting and combating these fires in a mutual aid type of request where we've sent engine companies to the Oregon border, to the Mexican border, and everywhere in between to combat these fires. And your firefighters are working and have been working up to 60 days with 2 days off in a row. So it really puts a stress on them and their families because they have their family dynamics, but this is what we do. This is what we signed up for. And so they'll go for 14 to 21 days. They'll come home, they'll hit the reset button, let's just say, and they could potentially be out for an additional 14 to 21 days. And that is still going on. We still have people up on some of these fires throughout the state of California. And we also have sent people to Colorado. With local events, anytime that we have a traumatic event that involves a major type of incident, just to let you know, we have a critical incident stress debriefing team that comes out where we take engine companies and our personnel out of service. We go through critical incident stress debriefing to ensure mental health and welfare of our firefighters. So if there's anything we need to do additionally, that we can take that challenge on. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you may have. And I also noticed, or of course, that Megan Courier, who's my partner in crime, if you will, helps with all the needs for the COG. For any one of us.
I just wanted to mention, Drew, that Carrie had mentioned it. I think you heard him. Our meeting with your guys, the Conservancy, it was great. There was a little hesitation initially from your side, you know, this idea that we were going to be a renegade fire department out running around putting out building fires. And I think when they got the idea that our little truck was there at their disposal to back them up, it totally changed. All of a sudden, they had ideas about how they could utilize our vehicle in areas that they have trouble getting access to, just to use it as sort of a pumper. And they even gave us some additional supplies. They confirmed our vehicle was working order. Just great. It was just could not have been better coordinated radio frequencies of the Conservancy. Just outstanding.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great thing to have that enhancement there for sure. And I feel strongly that Carrie and I and the city have a plan to help enhance the capabilities of those two units that we have there. We're really looking forward to it because it's a positive thing.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other questions, I thank you very much for your time, and we will move on. It's a couple of minutes after 10. So we have the League of Cities, and then we have our legislative staff and agency partner updates. So let's move on to League of Cities. I know I saw Jeff on the call. Hi, Jeff.
Morning, everyone. Yes, I'll try to be quick. Obviously, I know many of you participated in the League's annual conference last week, or excuse me, 2 weeks ago, I guess. Hopefully that was a good experience. I've had a lot of good feedback, but if you, please send me your feedback if you have any. We are trying to tweak that. It looks like we're going to be doing some more of these virtual conferences moving forward. So we want to try to make them as beneficial as we can. The League, talking about the election a little bit, the League is supporting Proposition 20, and the Los Angeles County Division has taken an opposed position on LA County Measure J. If anyone needs more information on those two campaigns or our letters about them, please just let me know. As far as legislation is concerned, I know I haven't focused too much on it because so many of the bills that we were really all looking at and focusing on didn't make it to the governor's desk. But there are a few highlights I wanted to point out from the year. SB 1441 by Senator McGuire allows local governments to continue to collect utility user taxes from the retail sales of prepaid wireless mobile devices. That was something the governor signed. That was obviously a win for cities. AB 992 by Mullen modernizes the Brown Act to update some of the information about how they can communicate with their constituents via social media platforms. So that'll be interesting, and I'm sure we'll probably end up putting something out about that. AB 434 Dally aligns rental housing programs that were sort of in different departments and puts them all into the Department of Housing and Community Development. So that has at least made all of those different applications easier and a little bit more streamlined. And of course, AB 1286 Miritsuchi, which was requiring shared mobility device providers, those e-scooters that we've had problems with in the past, to obtain a permit from the city. That was a bill that the League sponsored, so we were very happy to see that the governor signed that as well. I know I've talked a little bit to individual members of the COG about this, but the League's policy committee applications are now open. The whole process is going a little slower than I kind of expected, and there aren't as many obvious routes for people. So if you're interested in serving on a League policy committee, and I know I've spoken to some of you, please let me know, and we'll kind of work on how to best make that happen. In a moment, I'm going to put in the chat a little bit of information about those policy committees if you want to check it out. Otherwise, just reach out to me. Then we do have a couple upcoming things. Our city attorneys conference is virtual and is taking place. Actually, part of it started last week, but it's taking place going through November 6th. They're spacing it out quite a bit virtually. Virtual finance conference for your municipal finance officers. Our fire chiefs conference in December, and then city clerks are also in December. If your city, if any of those sound like they might be interested, please direct the appropriate city staff to check that out. For the board members on the line, we have a mayors and council members roundtable discussion that's taking place tomorrow. I'm going to drop a link on how to register for that into the chat as soon as I'm finished here, but it's tomorrow at noon. We've been doing a lot of these roundtable discussions, and unfortunately, they've sort of been announcing them through our listservs, which I know many of you are probably not on. And they're almost out of favor at this point, so we're not really using them much, but they have been announcing them. It's just a roundtable discussion for mayors around the state, council members around the state to talk about leadership and just kind of work through some of the issues that many of you are sort of dealing with in this virtual environment. So I'll be including that. One last thing I'll mention, the LA County Division and the Contract Cities Association jointly hosted a district attorney candidates forum for here in LA County last week. That is available to watch if you weren't able to participate on our lacities.org website. It takes about an hour or so and has some good information there. The two candidates kind of, it's going to be an interesting race. I did want to just mention, you know, we've all seen that COVID's cases have been really spiking across a lot of the country. LA County, you know, we used to have those problems. We haven't seen a big rise. I know that we are LA County officials and other places in the state are seeing numbers go up. LA County is actually really holding those numbers down, which is helping California as a whole. So I know that's something that we want to look at with Halloween coming up and the election, people going to ballot places. So I just wanted to make mention of that. I know we're all frustrated, but I'm going to be continuing to send out information as I get it from the state and from the county. So I'm happy to take any questions at that point.
Thank you, Jeff. Does anybody have any questions of Jeff? I'm not seeing anything, so let's move on to our updates from legislative staff and agency partners. I saw Tessa and Aurelia, so let's start with you, Tessa, from the supervisor's office.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I'll be super fast. I wanted to mention, Carrie talked about the gathering of up to 3 households that the public health department is allowing. And just to note, those are with masks on and outside. So it's not like they're saying you can have a party, you know, without those added burdens. So the goal, yes, is to keep our numbers down. We are doing well, except that the numbers that are going up continue to be of young people. So definitely don't want those skateboarders out there, you know, increasing our numbers. Continue to remind folks that gatherings in general are not allowed. And thank you for everything you are doing. I know that the school waiver process has been top of mind for many of you. And as you know, Las Virgenes has applied for their elementary schools. This is TK through grade 2. It's been a challenge for schools to actually get their waivers approved, in part because of a requirement that PTAs and school unions provide a letter of support. So the Board of Supervisors and Department of Public Health are actually meeting in closed session today to sort of review if there might be a way to make this process a little bit less burdensome, recognizing that PTA and the unions are not, they're concerned about liability with providing a letter of support. So there may be an option that will be developed, and we will get that out to you as soon as we can. They will also be discussing today whether wineries and breweries can eliminate the requirement to serve food. So I don't know if there are, I think there's one winery in Agoura. I don't know, you probably have lots of wineries and breweries, but know that there may be some changes there coming up. COVID-19 Safety Compliance Certificate Program for business owners. If you are not familiar with this, it's a way for businesses to be able to show prominently in their windows that they are in compliance. I can add in the chat a link for you to send out to your businesses so that they can learn, you know, hopefully, as Stuart mentioned at the very beginning of the meeting before it started, you know, we want public health to be helpful, right? And help businesses to do the right thing. So I'll send you this link so that you can pass it along to your businesses. And finally, the last round of the LA COVID relief funds will start and be available October 26th. And I can add that link to the chat box as well. And that's all for now.
Thank you.
Tessa?
Oh, go ahead.
Tessa, I just wanted to add, but Las Virgenes did submit their waiver application with support from both unions.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make for the rest of the people on the call that didn't know. So that was great work from our district.
You know if they got a PTA letter?
They did. I believe they put everything in their packet.
Awesome. Okay.
I definitely know about the unions, the PTA, I would assume, but I don't know that. I don't have that information, but the unions I do know.
Good to know.
Thank you so much, Tessa. I appreciate it. Any other questions for Tessa? Okay, Aurelia. from
Hi,
Congressman
everyone.
Luzon.
I'll keep it super brief because I know we're over time. So unfortunately, the census deadline was going to be October 31st, but SCOTUS reversed that decision. So the deadline was on October 15th. I'm sure you all are well aware of that. Additionally, the House passed Heroes 2.0, which I'm sure many of you are aware of if you're watching the news about the stimulus bill kind of updates there. We passed the 2.2 trillion, which is basically just a reduction in time and not reduction in the things that we wanted allocated in Heroes. But the speaker is currently in negotiations with the White House and Senate Republicans to see if we can come to a deal. But just given the division that's currently going on, I'm personally not very optimistic about those chances, but hopefully we can see some relief. If not, maybe after the election, we'll see how everything goes. But on our end, we're having an event for conversations with veterans, our annual kind of veterans town hall. We're currently looking for any extra veterans who are interested in speaking. So if you know of a compelling veteran who would be interested in sharing their story, let me know and I'll pass it along to my colleague, Janet Turner, who's organizing that event. That's Sunday, November 8th at 2 p.m. and it's going to be held virtually and streamed on Congressman Liu's Facebook Live page. Legislatively, we also had some successes getting the HR 6769, which is called the SAVE Act, SAVE, Supporting At-Risk Veterans in Emergency Act. And it basically was part of a larger homelessness package that was passed by the House, but it would ensure that the Westlake VA and other campuses around the country would have legal authority to provide veterans in need with food and access to food, especially during these really difficult times. The Congressman's Renewable Energy Amendment was also passed in a larger package, which creates a grant program for investments in renewable energy, energy and efficiency, energy storage, smart grids, and micro grants, as well as training local residents. And it will be awarded to nonprofits that would be able to apply. So hopefully it will make it through the entire process there. And then we also had the House pass a bill that we were supportive of and co-introduced, and it went through the Senate. So on the way to the president's desk, it's S2330, and that's the Empowering Olympic, Paralympic, and Amateur Athletes Act, which is a sweeping Olympics reform bill. With that, I'll take any questions, but again, I just wanted to keep it brief because I know we're over time.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions of Aurelia? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. Let's move on to general comments and requests for future agenda items. I believe we've already discussed a future agenda item. Terry has that information. Are there any other requests for future agenda items? Seeing none, do we have any general comments from anybody? Okay, seeing none, then let's talk about future meeting dates. The Technical Advisory Committee is scheduled for Wednesday, November 4th, 2020, 8:30 a.m. And the next governing board meeting is Tuesday, November 17th, 2020 at 8:30 a.m. Anything else from anyone? Then if I can have a motion and a second to adjourn today's COG meeting, then we can all go on with our days.
Motion to adjourn by Stuart.
I'll second.
Great. I'll take a roll call on that. Kelly Honig.
Aye.
Karen Farrar.
Aye.
Alicia Weintraub.
Aye.
Stuart Siegel.
Aye.
Elise Buckley Weber. Aye. The motion passes 5-0. This meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you all. Thank you, Terry. And we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.